To GamesHUB, a crypto talk show with our investors, partners, and remarkable personalities. I'm Constantin Kogan, co-founder of GamesPad. We're excited to welcome a very special guest today, Ashton Addison, CEO and host of broadcaster of Reuters Insider, producer at Crypto Coin Show, and blockchain interviews. Today, we'll talk about steps towards crypto adoption by traditional companies. And it's really a pleasure to have you here, Ashton. Hi.
Likewise, Constantine, thank you so much for the time, and I'm very excited to be here.
The excitement is mutual. Thanks for joining us. And maybe to begin with, tell us a little bit about your background. What excited you about, crypto, Web3? How did you got into this industry?
Definitely, yeah, thank you. And I first got involved in cryptocurrencies and blockchain in a way that not a lot of people get into it. It was actually my father. He is a dot-com entrepreneur, and he has always been in tech, since the 90s. And he's been following along. And when he saw Bitcoin in 2012, 2013, he had an instant conviction that he knew this was the future of not just money, but finance and all of the industries that we're now seeing expand into. So I actually got involved with him around 2013, started following Bitcoin and some of the other coins that were existing, which don't even exist anymore. It was before Ethereum. And we decided, because we were in media, we would start a digital magazine that could help showcase startups and Web3 projects that are trying to use this technology in real world use cases. So we actually started CryptoBiz magazine in 2014. And then I got so into the YouTube side of it that we rebranded it to Crypto Coin Show as an interview and news media outlet that now has over 1,200 episodes with founders from all different industries inside of blockchain, and over 100 future unicorns, that we interviewed in their seed stages. And I'm still just as interested in Bitcoin and Ethereum as I was back in 2013. And when Ethereum came out, I was following it at 30 cents, 60 cents, all the way up to $5,000 and back. And I expect it to go above $5,000 eventually in the next run. And we will still be here reporting on all of the great companies that are using this technology to bring it into the world.
First of all, it's impressive. 1,200 interviews. I applaud you for that. I know how not easy that is. To interview people, to make sure it's relevant, information for your audience, for the speakers. So yeah, that's very important. I think what you're doing in terms of education is really, really important. And since we're talking today about more of adoption traditional businesses, I'm sure you talk to a lot of portfolio companies that that are focusing on integrating with them or partner at some point of time. And we see Gucci, Visa, MasterCard, all the big guys are now joining the game. But how do you envision the future of crypto adoption by traditional businesses in the next few years?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're right. We're seeing little tidbits here and there of these, especially the payment processing companies that are doing fiat payments, controlling the movement of money around the world. And with the rise in people using Bitcoin and other cryptos to move money around the world, how can they capture some of that audience that they're losing? And what I'm most interested about in the near-term future, not necessarily, I don't think Visa and MasterCard are going to come out with something tomorrow that is as good as what PayPal is working on and what Twitter is working on. I think since Elon Musk acquired Twitter, and all the way back to when he started X.com and PayPal back in '99, he's been focused on a payments play, and having a social network that millions of people are using is great, but having them using a payments network inside of that, I think, is going to be the game changer. So I'm really looking at, how will cryptocurrency start getting into the hands of people that when they're using these online platforms, whether they're talking on they're connecting with family over their social texting platform, that's the perfect location to be able to send funds, whether it's fiat or crypto, to them. And I think that's where we're going to see a major adoption of cryptocurrencies. And the traditional payment processors are going to need to adopt or die. So I could definitely see probably Coinbase integrations on Visa and MasterCard payments with your credit card. Probably, when you tap your Visa on the POS terminal, it'll say, do you want to spend your Bitcoin balance, or do you want to spend your bank account balance? I could see it coming to that, but I'm also envisioning, not just inside of Twitter messaging, which I think is coming in the near term future here, being able to send Satoshis or Dogecoin. We'll see what happens with Dogecoin and Twitter. But through WhatsApp and Instagram and all of these social messaging platforms where everyone is connected, you'll be able to send Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies to your friends and family at low cost. And I'm really excited for the day when that comes.
It is really exciting, and there are a lot of challenges united to that. So we were talking about browsers and big companies, regulators. I'm sure you understand that right now, very careful, and they're now even looking at more scrutiny in terms of payment processors and money managers as well. So let's talk about the browsers component of these things, right? So for example, obviously Google is still dominating the space, but we see that that earlier we had an interview within the crypto ecosystems, lead Opera browser, right? So basically, you've seen some interesting news from them that they're also trying to integrate crypto payments. Brave is already native. We actually invested in another browser like Carbon, that is another going to become a native to browsers with crypto. Now, what do you hear from Opera guys?
Yeah, great question. And, I think browsers and search engines, which is sort of tied into the browsers as well, is a huge topic because really that's your gateway, into the internet. And having those native crypto integrations, I think, are going to be important, but also just the ethos of cryptocurrency and the privacy aspect of it and owning your own information. That's really the ethos of blockchain, is you're owning your own funds, but also you want to own your own personal information and make sure that it's private. And if you're going to give it out to somebody, whether it's an advertiser or something, then you should be able to monetize from that rather than them monetizing from you and becoming the product. And, I did speak with the Opera crypto browser. I actually used Opera browser 20 years ago, back when, they've been around forever, but not a lot of people have heard of them. But it's great that I think that they've now integrated a whole new browser just for crypto, and the Brave browser as well, sort of seeing these integrated wallets into the browser. Personally, I don't use I like to keep my wallet separate from the browser, and there's all these integrations with MetaMask and the other traditional wallets that you can still use inside the browser. But it's great to see that they're advocating for not just being able to hold your digital assets and keeping your private keys secure inside of the browser, but that ethos of privacy protection and owning your own funds and information on the browsers. And although Google Chrome has that #1 spot still, I do not like using it, and I don't recommend people to use it. Although, Brave and some of these other browsers are using the Chromium sort of operating system. They're based off Chrome. At least they have that ethos where they're like, we have your privacy in mind. And I personally do prefer Brave and crypto browser for Opera. I use both of them concurrently. But I think that there's going to be a major turning point as we see more control and regulation over finances. People are also going to realize about their personal information as well. And, I go back to some of the books I've been reading about, the death of Google, Life After Google. If you've read that book, it specifically mentions Brave browser. It was before the Opera crypto browser came out, but they're saying, they're just going to shoot themselves in the foot. Eventually, the world is going to realize that, they don't want to be the product. They want to own their own information and be able to capitalize on that themselves. And unless Chrome, takes a step towards that, I think people are naturally going to move to these crypto-based browsers. And we're already seeing millions of people using them. And I advocate for people to be using that all the time, because that is the gateway to the internet.
Perfect. So if I can ask you, what is your favorite example of any traditional company that has started to adopt crypto that you personally use and you're excited about?
It's a good question. I feel like I'm really looking forward to the integration of blockchain technology into a lot of these industry use cases that you wouldn't traditionally think would be using blockchain. And most of the time, you actually don't even know that they're using blockchain. And that's when we will get to real world adoption, when people are just using the application and they don't really know that it's using blockchain on the back end, and therefore they don't have to learn what is blockchain 101, all of these different things, you know. But right now we're still early days, you know. The evolution of Bitcoin, it just had its 14th birthday on January 3rd. And smart contracting platforms like Ethereum are even younger. You know, we're in like 5, 6, 7 years, whereas, you know, the internet's had 30 years to evolve. And even then, it's still early days. We're still evolving. So currently right now, I'm mainly just seeing the payments platforms. I think one thing that I really like is the globalization of payments with these crypto debit cards and credit cards. As long as they're built in the right way, you know, a lot of these cards, they try to get you to use their coin or lock you into their ecosystem to push up their token as well. And really what we're looking for is just ease of payments. You know, say I'm in Canada and I make a payment, and then I go to Mexico, and then I go to Africa. I can use that same card globally anywhere. And another company that is working on that with their own POS system as well, that I've been an advisor for, is PundiX. And they have an XPOS system with physical cards as well, where you can cash in and out of your Bitcoin and, you know, pay for your coffee with the Bitcoin and settle instantly and things like that. So I think really the major plays right now are still in payments.
It's interesting. I'll briefly share my fun part, like, you know, my Starbucks integration. So what I do lately, I go to Starbucks and I actually ask the employees, do they know about Polygon NFT integrations? And I did it already 7 times. Not a single person gives a clue, like, you know, like what's happening and when it's going to be up and how it's going to work, which is to your point, right? You know, they don't have to know, right? It's going to work somehow magically on the back end. As long as it brings value and people will utilize it, like, that's enough. Now, switching to gears to other topic, right? You know, so I know you've been also, like, you know, a big DEX proponent, and you've been interviewing a lot of people who are like whole, like very decentralized, like oriented, like, you know, I would say to a degree of being very radical about it, which is, you know, totally fine. That's their opinion. Now, also you had a pleasure to interview John McAfee when he was still alive, when he was building his McAfee DEX, right? You know, so what is your stance on what is the future of, you know, like of decentralized exchanges, right? Because CZ literally, if you saw this tweet that he mentioned, that he predicts that in 5-10 years, there's going to be a huge decentralized exchange bigger than Binance. Do you think it's realistic?
Yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, with John McAfee, his vision of you know, it goes along with the same ethos of the privacy protecting in the browser. You know, when you're trading your coins, you're going to want to hold those assets yourself and have custody of them the whole time, even while you're trading an asset, whether from Bitcoin to Dogecoin or something that's on a different blockchain that currently, with the centralized infrastructure, you have to give away your Bitcoin to them to say, hey, can you trade this for me? And hopefully give me the keys back after, right? And there's a lot of risk in having your keys and your coins on centralized exchanges. And I think the FTX debacle as well is a major turning point with that, where, you know, people need to ensure that they don't have too much money on centralized exchanges, because they're giving access to the passwords and the private keys of all their funds to these centralized exchanges. And, you know, we've been seeing it since the days of Mt. Gox, you know, and every year or two, there's a huge mishap with centralized exchanges. And I don't know if eventually people are going to learn that, you know, and the industry is going to learn that, hey, this is a bad idea to have centralized exchanges. But also we're just trying to catch up with the infrastructure of that cross-chain interoperability, right? And the reason that centralized exchanges started and the DEX movement is still early on is because we don't have the technology to have Bitcoin and move it to Dogecoin or Solana without giving your keys up to somebody who's able to make that trade and build the markets for us. But that cross-chain interoperability, that narrative has been, in the last 2 years, we're really seeing that. And I think decentralized exchanges are great. You know, Uniswap was a huge move forward with that, but it was just on Ethereum. And you know, Ethereum itself even has to be wrapped into a W ether that was a part of the ERC20 token standard. And you're easily able to trade Ethereum tokens back and forth. But once you want to use a DEX into different blockchains, then it's another story. But we are seeing that. And I think that's going to continue, that DEXs will just become the normal. And part of it is having that the usability of the decentralized exchange. And, just as we said, like Starbucks and these other industry use case applications, you really have to build it in a way for the end users so that they don't have to learn blockchain 101. Obviously, they need to have some conscious idea of protecting their funds and making sure that they're not making a wrong move and losing a lot of money, but not having to understand how the whole infrastructure works. It can get confusing. Already with decentralized exchanges, how they build the market making and building the order books through liquidity provision and staking, double-sided staking, things like that, that can get confusing for people that aren't in finance. And it's easy to lose money on impermanent loss, not understanding exactly how it works, right? And that's already the first sort of roadblock and why people just trade on centralized exchange, because there's extra risks that they don't understand. But I think that movement is going to continue towards decentralized exchanges, but also on the centralized exchanges, there will be security improvements as well. I actually just spoke to Odyssey Network, who are working on something called dynamic wallets and access controls for wallets. So how that will work will be on centralized exchanges. You'll actually be able to have wallets that have more provisions where you can authorize centralized exchanges to trade your coins, but not actually be able to withdraw them, remove them in an unauthorized way. So you essentially will be able to have a centralized exchange where you continue the custody of your funds and allow them only small access to the centralized exchange to actually use them. So I think that these safety provisions and probably regulation as well will improve trading on centralized exchanges, but I still see a major turning point towards decentralized exchanges, especially after the FTX debacle. In probably throughout this year and in the next couple of years.
Perfect. So we're now switching to our audience, right? To the guests, people who are asking throughout different platforms and YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and other channels. So I'll go right into it. So Captain Huddle from YouTube is asking, what inspired you to launch the Crypto Coin Show and blockchain interviews?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really enjoy educating people, and I was involved in finance. I studied finance in university, and I've been involved in technology since, my father gave me a computer when I was like 2 years old. And I thought this is the perfect way to educate people on the future of finance and technology. And also just seeing where the world is going, where, there's so many people struggling and they're living paycheck to paycheck, trying to find other ways to manage their finance. And the traditional educational system just doesn't teach people very well about personal finance. And somebody needs to do it, so that people can not have to worry about finances and actually just live a good life where they can, hopefully have some free time and not be enslaved labor for 40 years. So, if I can find a way to help the world with that, I think that having a YouTube channel that educates people on all of these innovative technologies is a great way to do it. And also, I'm just super excited personally about all the newest companies and the innovations that they're making to make the world a better place. So, it's my pleasure to have these founders on the show to be able to explain how they're helping the world and for me to help them get that word out there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That is inspiring. So Farah from YouTube is asking, what are some innovative approaches or solutions you've seen crypto native companies take to promote the adoption of cryptocurrency?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's an interesting question. It obviously depends a lot on the industry that company is in. I think that there's a lot of people that are trying to approach, adopt my cryptocurrency for this platform. But you have to think, why? And are all of these 2,000 or 20,000 or however many tokens there are now, are they all necessary? and even some of the larger ones, let's take Binance for an example. They've built a great ecosystem around the BNB token, including building the BSC chain, and it started out with just, you're going to save trading fees and you'll be able to stake it and stuff like that. But building a whole ecosystem around it where it almost becomes a necessity, because there's other tokens that want to use that ecosystem. They need Binance, as sort of the governance of it. I think at that point it could become a necessity, but it's definitely a question that a lot of investors ask projects that are starting up, that are utilizing blockchain technology. Can this platform use blockchain technology without actually using its own cryptocurrency? Can't you just use Bitcoin or Ethereum? And I think, the answer to that question from the founders is, it's a green flag or a red flag on whether, they actually understand how this technology is going to be used in the real world, and is it necessary to have a token with your project?
Mm-hmm. Now, Elaine from YouTube is asking, do you have any advice for those looking to encourage their company to embrace crypto adoption? I think he's asking about tradition.
Yeah. There's multiple ways to embrace crypto adoption with companies, whether it's actually embracing the payment of the cryptocurrencies, or it's finding innovative ways to actually integrate distributed ledgers or blockchain into their industry. And I think going back again to the ethos of owning your own data, owning your own privacy, and owning your own funds, I think all industries and all companies could be innovated upon, any ones that store data or have transactions. And if you can use this technology to bring more value to the customers, then there's definitely a reason to do so, right? And it can get intricate, but when you lay it out in a way for the end users that they're benefiting because it's bringing more value to them and allowing them to preserve their personal information or data or funds, then there's definitely value there. And a lot of companies that are, brick and mortar companies, been around for a while, they just hear about the price of Bitcoin going up and down and it's volatile. So, my entrance to crypto adoption would be starting to accept Bitcoin as a payment, and that's the only thing I can do. There's much more than that. But I think owning a little bit of Bitcoin personally and understanding how the network works, and then understanding about the decentralization and the immutability of the coin, and then understanding the traditional financial system as well, and the difference between fiat currency and Bitcoin, and the inflation that they're probably going to have with fiat currencies over the next 5-10 years as well. Those are all also great reasons to start crypto adoption. But there's many reasons once you dig down deeper for the actual technology, implementing it, how can it bring value to your customers?
So I think the logical continuation of this question, we have another one. So Noah for Games from Twitter is asking, what do you think are the benefits that companies can reap by adopting cryptocurrency? Maybe let's talk about like 2 or 3 practical examples that you personally think that can benefit a company to adopt crypto in whatever shape or form you.
Yeah, well, I think one huge advantage for international companies, obviously, the jurisdiction of payments. If you're a U.S. company and you can only deal with U.S. dollars inside of the U.S. and everyone has to have a U.S. bank account, you're really limiting your customer base to just the people inside of the U.S. If you want to take international payments, and you also, want to do it quickly and cheaply, then accepting cryptocurrencies, even just in stablecoin format, can allow you to take customers from Europe, Africa, Asia, instantaneously, and there's no limits to the jurisdiction. On top of that, you're removing the financial processing payment fees of Visa and MasterCard. That 2 to 3%. If you're making millions of dollars, billions of dollars in revenue, 2 to 3% is millions of dollars. So you could potentially be saving a lot of money by accepting cryptocurrencies and opening up your user base. And those are just the sort of easy integrations, and then as I mentioned in the previous answer about actually changing the technology to bring more value to the customers for their personal data and their funds, and access, I think are all advantages that every company could use to expand internationally quicker.
Perfect. And so Osan from YouTube is asking, what do you believe will be the most exciting developments in cryptocurrency that should look out for the near future?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there's so many cool different projects that are coming out. I'm excited to sort of see, which industries will Web3, where Web3 will break through into these new industries that were previously untouched by blockchain technology. And you wouldn't think they're really innovating in an industry that wasn't really had anything to do with technology, but through blockchain, they're solving a lot of problems, and we saw that with NFTs in the art world, in fine art, and obviously being able to digitize them and all of a sudden tokenize, the Mona Lisa into a million different pieces, and everybody can invest into it, or you can easily transfer digital art to somebody on the other side of the world. Interesting innovations like that. What I'm personally most excited about is still in the financial sector, which I think is the heart of a blockchain technology, and where we will see the most innovation. Although there are a lot of barriers to entry, and the traditional financial system, especially in America, has 100 years of history of they don't want to change how it has been in the past, because that's how they're making money and that's how they're bringing control over the world. But the tokenization of assets that are in the stock market and the commodities market, I think will bring huge advantages when people realize that there's no longer long settlement times for commodities or for stocks. We're seeing security tokens come out where the tokenization of ownership of equity of companies all of a sudden can be on the blockchain, and you can sell it instantaneously to somebody else without having to phone your broker, or without realizing that it's Saturday, so I can't sell these stocks because the stock market's not open. That's ridiculous. It's like banks not being open on after 4 o'clock, and all of a sudden, oh, you can't feed your family tonight because the bank's closed. It's like, no, Bitcoin and blockchain is open 24/7, and the way that having other people manage your money, but only on their time schedule, is stupid. So I think, just innovating the financial industry is the most important thing.
Yeah, not only it's stupid, it's also not transparent. I was rewatching, well, not rewatching, but actually watching for the first time, but rewatching from a different perspective, documentary about Bernie Madoff, right? How he forged his statements because he was printing them on an old school level. So that basically nobody saw how he got those transactions, where did he buy? He tried to interview all his counterparts, and they understood there's no way he can possibly process billions of dollars of trades in particular positions, and nobody knows about it. Now, on blockchain, because it's public, right? You can actually audit it in a blink of a second. You don't need to even ask questions if you know the initial address, right? So yeah, so it's a beautiful combination of privacy yet ability to be accountable for your actions, right? So I do agree with you. This is one of the top things. Probably one of the last questions I'll ask you, also for today. So Ahmed Elmaz is asking from LinkedIn, very similar question, but I'll try to spin it a little bit differently. He's asking, are there any projects or initiatives by traditional companies that excite you the most at the moment? Maybe talk about something really, one example that is very practical that you think that will actually help, an example of traditional company embracing the technology, not necessarily just the speculative aspect of it, that is changing it for the good.
Yeah. Well, there's so many different ways that you could use the technology, whether it's with NFTs or with DeFi or with protocols themselves. I think, a good example of being able to innovate and save millions of dollars is, with the banks, for example, using Ripple's technology and Ledger, as opposed to using the old Swift system. They're able to send billions of dollars for a few cents. And, they have a lot of banks in a conglomeration that are actually understanding that they don't even have to use the XRP token to save money. They can use the Ripple Ledger with fiat currency and still save 40% of the cost that they were using on the old system. And, that's millions and millions of dollars when you own a bank. And then further, using XRP, or even better, as they innovate, creating their own private currencies to be able to transact internationally, will save companies millions of dollars, and hopefully that will translate to, in the traditional world, not charging all these crazy fees for banking and financial services, and making it easier and more flowy. On the NFT side and digital media, I think, there's this huge war between traditional media and television, and then YouTubers and social media. And we're seeing, some of these top YouTubers like Mr. Beast and Joe Rogan, they have more influence than like entire news networks altogether. Just one person can say one thing. They can say, I don't trust this news company, and all of a sudden they're done, right? And the traditional media is looking for ways to innovate and have more of a say from the users. And, I recently spoke with a company, Blockchain Creative Labs, which was created by Fox TV. And what Fox is working on is they're working on a new television series, sort of like a Futurama kind of cartoon called Crapopolis, where all of the characters, I know it's a crazy name, but Futurama and Family Guy, there's no rules on these shows, and it's getting even crazier. So why not make Crapopolis?
I'm a big fan of Futurama. I'm a big fan.
Right. But we like crazy. So they've developed an NFT collection, and Crapopolis are like these cartoon chickens, and you can actually own some of the characters in the show, and then you actually get to influence the future of the show, and you get to say, I want this character to do this, or I want the next topic to be about this. And if there's enough weight with the community and like the DAO governance of it, then that actually goes into the show, and then you actually shape the future of what you want to watch on TV. Rather than flipping through the channels looking to find something good, you've created the show yourself. So I think we're going to see that more as the traditional media says, hey, we need to find ways to involve the viewers more and let them have a say in the content that they want to watch. So there's different examples like that, traditional companies that are starting to understand, hey, we need to use this technology to bring more value to our customers, or we're going to lose them.
Perfect. Crapopolis is an amazing example. I'll definitely look into it. But yeah, I'm sure there are others, and they're fun and they're innovative. A lot of great people, creative and smart, and they are, just really with good heart. They really want to change the world to be a better place, and I think that's why we definitely have a future. Really, really excited to hear from you. Thank you for your wisdom, Ashton. Really interesting, and I wish you well with everything that you're doing to educate more people. I think that's what we need. That's why we're happy to partner with you. So thanks everyone also for joining GamesHUB today. And we'll see you at 4 p.m. UTC or 11 a.m. EST, as always, in 2 weeks, and YouTube Live, Twitter Live, LinkedIn Live, all the different lives. And I hope ask your questions. If you haven't had a chance, to just write in the comments. We'll share all the information from Ashton. I'm sure he'll be kind enough. He's very active on Twitter, LinkedIn. Where else people can find you? Tell me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Constantin, for having me on the show. Definitely, look at our videos on YouTube, Crypto Coin Show. We come out with almost one new interview per weekday with, innovative companies. Most are great companies that have the potential to become future unicorns that we're looking to showcase at the beginning. We also are putting the best of the best interviews along with all the crypto news for the week and technical analysis in our Substack newsletter, which is cryptocoinshow.substack.com. So those are the two best places to find out more information about what we're working on. And I really do appreciate you having us on the show today. Thank you so much, Constantin.
Thank you, Ashton. Maybe we'll join your show next time. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a great day.